Hello and welcome to the weekly Oracle Wisdom. For those of you joining me for the very first time, my name is Natalie, and we are going to have a look at what the Oracle cards have to tell us about the energies for the week ahead. I did post the June monthly Oracle Wisdom, so make sure you go and check that out. I will have the link in the description below. And I hope that everybody's week is off to a good start, because this is always posted on a Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific daylight time at the moment. It will go to Pacific Standard Time when the clocks shift. And yeah, I just hope everybody's having a good start to the week and had a great weekend. So I normally start with the MahrukhX deck, but we are actually starting with the Law of Attraction Oracle cards, which is if you've been watching me for the last few weeks, month, you'll see that I don't know how to pronounce this creator's name correctly, Sishui. I'm just going to show you all the box. So I really have to figure out how to say this person's name, but that's what we're going to get started with. I just thought we should mix things up a little bit. All right, so I've already had a bunch of cards jump out, and anyone that has seen these cards before will know the thing that I like about them, and that's a little bit different to most Oracle card decks, is this has a straight up and reversed side to them. So I've got 4, and we'll see if 1 or 2 more jump out. Oh, I think it's that. Okay. So the first card out is authenticity. Living your truth strengthens your energy. Authenticity attracts what aligns with you. Express yourself fully and without fear. Let go of people-pleasing tendencies. Then we have mindset. Your habitual thoughts create your experiences. Align your thinking with your desires. Catch negative self-talk and replace it with empowering beliefs. Shift your internal mental patterns. Then we have breakthrough. A major shift is occurring. You are breaking free from limitations. Step boldly into the unknown. Trust that your breakthrough is leading to greater freedom. Then we have synchronicity. The universe is constantly sending you signs and confirmation. Pay attention to repeated patterns. Stay mindful of recurring numbers, symbols, and events. They are guiding you towards alignment with your desires. Sorry, I just needed to check that. My mic was actually on. And then finally, we have the abundance card in reverse, which is scarcity thinking may be blocking abundance. Shift your mindset to sufficiency. So I think this week is a good week in terms of how we're approaching things. It's a week where we have to remember to be authentic. And in a world where social media exists and we are constantly being shown what we should be, and this person's successful and this is what they did. And so we live in a world of mimicry is the word that I keep hearing. We're living in a world where everybody is trying to mimic somebody else because they want to be able to repeat their success. And the reality is the reason those people that we're trying to mimic were successful is because they were authentically themselves. And sometimes we feel like when we are being ourselves and people in the wider world or the wider community come out and criticize us, we immediately sort of shrink back and we're afraid to be who we are. And the reality is those people aren't our people. They're not our tribe. And if you spend your life trying to, I love this saying and I live my life by it, because I've met people that try and sit on the fence. They want to be liked by everybody because any sort of criticism is hurtful. And I understand that hurt. But when you sit on the fence and you try to please everybody, you stand for nothing. So when you stand in your truth, when you stand in your authenticity, yes, there are going to be people that disagree with you, that may dislike you, but all the right people will come into your life. And that is the greatest gift you can get. And that is how you're going to find your tribe. Then we have the mindset card. So this is all about your mindset, how you're approaching life. I've talked before, many people talk about living in a place of gratitude and how important gratitude journals are and things like that. One of the stories I always share when talking about gratitude was whenever my diary is fully booked for a few weeks in advance, it's the best feeling when you work in entertainment, because you sit there and go, okay, I'm good financially for the next little while because I can budget this and I've got all this work going on. I am good. So anything else that comes is like the cherry on top. And because often you don't know that you're working until the day before. There is this instability, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to learn to budget your money. You have to know how to survive in those times when work quietens down, because there are different cycles to how these industries work. And I remember one day I was on the phone to somebody, this is in Australia, with our colorful money. And so it looks almost like Monopoly money, and the $100 notes are green. The 50s are yellow. The 20s are like a bright orangey red. 10s are blue, and 5s are pink. So I'm on the phone to someone, and I was pulling up in my car, and I said, I am so grateful that my diary is so fully booked. And, I feel really stable, and I'm so grateful. And the moment I said how grateful I was, I looked ahead and I could see this green thing on the ground in front of my car. And so I get out and I said, hang on one second. And I get out and I find $100 bill. And I get back in the car and I said to the person, you're not going to believe it, I just found $100. And they went, no, you didn't. And so I took a photo of me with 100, and there was nobody else around. It wasn't near another vehicle or near somebody else's front door. It was literally in the garden bed. And I said, that's what you get when you sit in a place of gratitude. And the diary kept filling up, and, I found this money, and it was the universe just sort of going, okay, we recognize that you're grateful and that you're doing all the right things. So you need to be very careful about your mindset, not only sitting in a place of gratitude, but staying in a place of positivity, because we can all have these moments of being very negative and why me? I just started reading a friend's book, and it's about her healing journey. And just in the introduction, she said, I knew how to heal myself. And she said, but I was so caught in victimhood that I didn't know how to move forward. And I couldn't even remember the things that I already intrinsically knew. And she said, I was, in this place of victimhood of, oh, poor me, why is this happening to me? And she said, so then I couldn't move forward. So just make sure that this week you are sitting in a place of gratitude. You are looking at the glass as being half full, the positives that you have going on in your life versus the things that you don't have or that you haven't achieved yet. And it's also about the self-talk that we have going on in our head. And this it makes sense that authenticity and mindset are coming out together, because when we're standing in our authenticity, and if we are triggering people and that's causing them to criticize us or be nasty or have a disagreement with us, or maybe if they just disagree with your stance on something, you're then questioning whether you're doing the right thing or in the right space. And so then we start criticizing ourselves. So this is a place where you need to be strong in being sure of who you are and being authentic. And it's a place of where your mindset needs to be strong. When you do that, it leads to breakthroughs. Like I said, when you are being authentic, when you are being you and doing things your way. So if I use this show as an example, when I first started doing these readings, and I don't get this through formal training. I have always known things that I shouldn't know. And if you've watched Gemini Rising or any of my interviews, I talk about different experiences I've had growing up where I have known things that no child should know, but it was stuff that would just come pouring out of me. And I was very lucky, had a terrible relationship with my mother, but I was very lucky in the sense that she would say to me, "How did you know that?" And I would just shrug my shoulders and say, "I just knew." And she accepted that answer and then moved on. She never made me feel bad or weird for knowing the things that I knew. And she gave me a foundation for my spirituality that I am very, very grateful for, because it has served me well and I've been able to build on that. But in order to have, I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, the breakthrough. I do remember. Sorry, having a moment. So this authenticity that you have. And so I've always been considered a very weird person. If you meet me, I do things that people find shocking. I don't think they're that shocking. I say things that people find shocking. To me, it's just normal. But with that, when I was younger, there was a lot of criticism of me. And at school, I could never sort of find that group of people. There's a handful of people that I'm in touch with. Oh, I do remember I was going somewhere else, but we'll do this first. I was in touch. I'm still in touch with a very small handful of people, but I was that weird kid at school that just didn't really fit in. I mean, I would knit in primary school on my lunch break because that was more fun than going and playing outside with these girls that weren't very nice to me. So then we fast forward to doing the oracle cards. That was where I was going with the knowing things. I started ordering oracle cards without knowing what to do with them. I was just picking these things that resonated with me. And for 2 years, one of the first decks that I got, which was a Rebecca Campbell Rose deck, sat on my coffee table and I did nothing with it. And then one day I was like, I think I need some more. And I ordered some more and started playing with them. And what I've realized is that essentially when I'm doing these readings, I'm just channeling. That's all it is. What the cards give me is the place to start and the direction this needs to move in. The rest of it just comes in. Hence the deviation today. I apparently needed to share those stories. But I had people in the beginning criticize me. You can't share your own personal information. You can't share this. You can't share that. You're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. I don't need to do it anyway. I'm not trying to be like anybody else. I am doing these readings how I'm guided to do them. And that's it. And I don't advertise. I've talked about this before. I am grateful for every single subscriber that is on here. I am grateful for every like, every follow, every comment, the people sharing their own stories and how these readings resonate with them. All of that. So grateful, because I just believe that if this information is meant to be out in the world and it's meant for certain people, they will find it. And I'm letting it go to the universe. That is me being authentic. And in doing that, I keep having breakthroughs where there are weeks where the numbers just go up. And, you know, every time I call Anne and say, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore, you know, maybe it's not resonating with anybody and maybe this is happening, that's when there's another jump. Or there are a ridiculous amount of comments. And I'm talking across both platforms, High Vibe and YouTube. And, you know, it's when you are in charge of who you are and you're real about it, when you are good with your mindset in terms of the negative self-talk. And like I said, it's normal. And it's okay to have moments of doubt. What it's not okay to do is sit in that place. I mean, you can if you want, but that is going to alter how you move through this life. So you are on the precipice of a major breakthrough, and this shift is occurring. And this is about being brave enough to step into the unknown and go with this breakthrough. And this is why your authenticity and your mindset is so very important this week. And you're going to be getting signs from the universe, synchronicities. So I always talk about the fact that, and I had somebody messaging me that I haven't spoken to in, I think, 10 years, reached out in the last few days, and we've been having some very deep conversations, and we've been talking about synchronicities, and feathers are a huge thing. Often when I have conversations with the universe, feathers will appear on my doorstep, in my house, in my bed. I remember one time I was still in Melbourne and I was lying in a hammock and I sort of went, I really need to move. I need to get out of where I am. My time there was done. And I mean, where I was beautiful and safe and wonderful in many ways, but it was time for me to move on and for things in my life to shift. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I'm laying in this hammock and all of a sudden a feather comes flying over my roof and drifts down and lands on me in the hammock. So the synchronicities can be feathers. It can be a totem animal that is a totem for you. It can be coins. It can be angel numbers, 1111, 111, 222, all these different things. If you're seeing this happening over and over again, it can also be patterns of numbers. And for a lot of people, they have patterns of numbers that are important to them for whatever reason. So pay attention to all of that, because the universe wants to give you encouragement and is communicating with you, but you have to be open to what is being communicated. And then the final card from this deck is scarcity thinking may be blocking abundance. Shift your mindset to sufficiency. So again, this goes back to our mindset of how we're approaching life. Are you looking at the root system and going, oh, well, that's not enough, I need all of this? Or are you sitting in a place of gratitude going, oh my goodness, look at all of this fruit. And there's so much that there's even stuff on the ground. These are the things that we need to pay attention to this week. And it's about where our mind is getting stuck. And you are the only person in control of your mind and how you proceed sort of through this energy. And a lot of the astrologers have been saying that the next couple of weeks is the best astrology essentially of the year, and that it eases up because, man, we've been going through it. We have talked about this in previous weeks. So we are at a moment where we can kind of breathe a little bit and we're able to start sort of moving forward and having these breakthroughs, but you are in control of what happens with all of that. Okay, so now I do have a Marukh deck. This is the butterfly effect. I do hope all of that made sense considering I went off in a whole bunch of different directions. I'm just going to pull 3 and then we'll have a look at them. Okay. Okay, so the first card out that we have is healing. You're healing your body by releasing any trapped emotions and giving yourself enough time to understand the lessons your pain is trying to teach you. So what is it that you're moving through and letting go of? And I think that while you're healing, this is where your mindset is going to have the power. I mean, I referenced my friend's book, which I hadn't intended to talk about at all. And that's all about healing. And what was holding her back from healing was her mindset. So if there are things that you're releasing and you have been hanging on to, and there are manifestations of that physically, emotionally, it's time to let all of that go and move through it. And that means feeling it, because often when we're releasing things, they have to sort of come out and burn off, and you have to let yourself go through those emotions. But reflect as to why this is happening. Reflect as to what all of this is trying to teach you, because I think for me, this is just my belief. I believe there are lessons to everything. Every relationship that didn't work out, there is a silver lining. If we go back to the abusive relationship that I reference a lot, that relationship changed me for the better in a way that I don't know that I would have learned all those lessons in a lifetime without it. Would I wish it upon anybody? Absolutely not. Am I grateful that it happened because it taught me so much? Absolutely. Is that the silver lining of that period of my life? 1,000%. So everything is trying to teach us something. The question is, are you able to sit and reflect and figure out what that is? Then we have victory. You're finally getting something that you've been waiting for a very long time, a raise, a promotion, finished the project, found the love of your life, or leveled up. You should be proud. So I think this goes through, and when I had it placed, it was on top of the breakthrough card. So there are these breakthroughs, there are these victories happening. And sometimes I think when we're healing, just releasing something, especially something big that we've been hanging on to for a longer period of time, can actually in itself be a victory. So while we may have something really big happening this week, that is super positive and really is a massive win, take the little wins as well. They need to be celebrated. They need to be acknowledged because they are a big deal and they do mean something. And then the final card from the butterfly effect is self-love. Your focus will be on putting yourself first and showing yourself the love you've been longing for, because there's a desire to shift and rise up to something more beautiful. So this goes back to authenticity and accepting who you are and loving yourself for exactly who you are. And nobody else is going to be able to love you unconditionally until you love yourself totally and completely. And I get it. It's such a cliche thing to say, and so many people get so frustrated and triggered by that. But the reality is nobody else can complete us. Nobody else can make us happy. If we are miserable with who we are and we're unhappy with something about ourselves, but we're not doing anything to change it, fix it, better ourselves, somebody else coming in isn't going to shift it. It might mask it for a little while, but it's going to bubble back up to the surface. And when you're able to focus on yourself and really sort of embrace yourself, be on your own without getting anxious or freaked out at being on your own and being with your own thoughts, that's a huge, huge step forward. So I think this week there's a very strong focus on yourself, your self-identity, loving that person that you are and really embracing them. And the healing, I think that comes with that. I actually think that's where the healing comes from, because we all have wounds from being told we weren't good enough or believing we weren't good enough because of past experiences. And the reality is we all came here to be individuals, to be ourselves exactly as we are. And that is when you embrace that, that's going to be the easiest way to move forward in life. Okay, and now we have the Angels and Ancestors Oracle card. We're just going to pull one, because if you had a look at my thumbnail, I'm walking through the forest with a whole bunch of people. So the card that came out is Warrior. Be fearless and stand strong. I don't think I need to say anything more than that. Be the warrior that you came here to be. Embrace that warrior and embrace your weirdness, embrace your uniqueness, embrace the weird, goofy habits that you might enjoy. I mean, I talked about how I used to knit on my lunch breaks at school. Then there was a period of time where another girl and myself, and I don't even remember which girl it was, we used to dance because we had a dance class at school. So we used to practice one of the dances all lunchtime. That was all we did. We just danced. We had no music. We didn't have iPhones back then. We didn't have a stereo. We just did the dance. Now I crochet, and anyone that's been watching Anne and I for a long time know that I made her a blanket. We call it the magic blanket. I've got blankets throughout my house that I've made. Everybody always goes, wow, this is incredible. Weird little things. I roller skate. I pole dance. If people knew what I did for fun, which isn't even that exciting, they'd just be like, really? That's what you do? Partying, drinking, it was never my thing. Embrace who you are. It's fine. I once went on a date with this very good-looking man who was very successful and quite well known in Melbourne, and he sort of chased me down and asked me out, and he was very, very sweet. But then as soon as it would get dark, the messages would get weird. It was a bit strange. I went out with him and realized there were some we'll say substance issues. Okay. And when I realized what was happening, I called him the next day and I said, listen, I appreciate the space that you're in, what's going on, and why you're doing what you're doing, because there were things going on in his life. And I said, but I'm just not in that place, and that's not the life that I want to live. And that we're not a match. And this man tried to shame me just because I didn't want to spend my nights partying and taking substances and what have you. And I was just like, yep, that's fine. I feel fine about who I am. And if you think I'm boring, that's fine. It just shows that we're not compatible. So, I mean, it's a weird, random little story, but do you know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody that thinks we're not good enough, or the things that we do are strange, or that we should be doing life their way. No, we're doing it exactly as we're meant to do. And we get joy from the things we get joy from. So embrace it, be you, be a warrior. And that's all I have to say. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. Make sure you go and check out the monthly Oracle Wisdom if you haven't already watched it. And I will see you here next week. And of course, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Not every reading is for every person. Have a great week, everyone.